Okay, members, we're just going to get started here. Okay. Great, folks. You're welcome to this meeting of Regeneration and Community Committee of Tuesday, 11th of June, 2024, the first since the annual meeting. And just before I get started, I would just like to briefly just take this opportunity to thank Councillor Buchanan for chairing our proceedings very well over the last 2 years, and just in acknowledging the fact that being the first Alliance member to sit in this chair in any official capacity, I'm enormously grateful to my colleague Eddie Roof for supporting me in this. And indeed, I just want to say thank you to the Alliance voters across from Annanoma who enabled me to have this opportunity. And I really look forward to working with each of you and all the various parties over the course of the business in this mandate. So, just as a little bit of tidying up before we get into the formal business, I need to resign from the audit panel, having taken up this position, and I need that to be replaced by Eddie Roof. So would it be possible to get a proposer and a seconder for that? And I see Anne-Marie and I see Councillor Gannon. Okay. Content? All right, thank you. Okay, moving on then. Yep. Oh, yes.
Thanks, Stephen, and all the best in the year to come, and hopefully there'll be nobody too awkward and cause any trouble. So, just when you mentioned the audit panel there, I just wanted to maybe emphasise I'm the chair of the audit panel, and we do struggle with numbers, and the last number of meetings we just had enough that there was a quorum on it. So maybe if Eddie if Eddie's taken over on that, it could be emphasised, because there's a lot of people comes a long way to it, and if we don't have enough councillors there, the meeting will be. And we talked about it the last day that there's a possibility that we're going to end up having to cancel meetings because of the councillors turnout. So if we maybe all parties that has councillors on the audit panel, maybe they could try their best to attend. There's only about 3 or 4 of them in the year. So,
point well made, Councillor Green. Okay, moving on then to apologies. Do we have apologies from Sinn Féin?
Councillor Marty McColgan, Paddy Kelly, and Roisin Devine Gallagher, and Declan McYard.
And do we have any apologies from the Ulster Unionists?
Thank you, Chair, and all the best for your incoming year. Councillor Diana Armstrong, she mentioned there's an election or something coming up and she's busy or something tonight, so thank you.
I wouldn't know about any such thing myself. Any apologies from the DUP?
Thank you. Councillor Thompson's unable to be here tonight, Chair, and thank you for your kind word as well, and wish you well in your year. Thank you.
And Councillor Gannon, you're there. Fabulous stuff. Right, lovely. Okay, then just moving on to, do we have any just in terms of signing the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 14th of May 2024, I have already done that. Declarations of interest, do we have any declarations of interest to note at this stage? Okay, I'm not seeing any indications. I will step out of the chair during the matter with respect to the Education Authority and the Bonacre Centre, and if members are content, I've agreed with Councillor Gannon that he will step into the chair at that point. And I'll also declare an interest with a number of groups that are relevant to the grant aid panel item. I will not take part in the vote and I will not comment on that particular matter. Okay, so moving on then to item 4, Regeneration Planning Directorate reports, and we're going to consider the report on the draft corporate plan for 2024 to 28. Kim.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So members will know that we've been working over recent months to develop our new corporate plan, and the purpose of this report is to provide an overview of the consultation process and to seek approval of the final draft version, which is attached to the document. So the corporate plan sets our strategic direction for the next 4 years. It has been informed by an ongoing series of engagements, including with elected members, council staff, key stakeholders, and community planning partners. Council agreed the draft plan in January 2024 for public consultation, and a series of engagement opportunities were taken forward as outlined in the engagement and consultation report attached at Appendix 1. We received a total of 96 responses to the Council's online consultation survey, and a high level of support was demonstrated for the direction set out in the corporate plan. So 81% of respondents agreed with the vision, and in terms of the priorities, 83% agreed with climate action priority, 93% with the people and communities priority, 88% with the shared prosperity priority, and 80% with the One Council priority. Taking account of the feedback, there are a number of minor changes which are set out at paragraph 2.5. And further to the feedback, the corporate plan document has been updated, and the proposed final version, the designed version, is attached to Appendix 2 and includes a number of infographics around providing information about the council and about our district at a glance. So in taking the plan forward, officers will now proceed to set out performance report cards for each of the core objectives, and will report twice a year to council on progress against those. And we will now liaise with the council chair to arrange a public launch of the plan, which is anticipated for late July, subject to council approval. And the recommendations are that council notes the engagement and consultation report attached at Appendix 1 and approves the corporate plan attached at Appendix 2.
Okay, I'm going to bring in Councillor McElduff.
Thank you, Chair. One of the things that I have to ask about the corporate plan, and I would too if it was the community plan, it has been raised with me by people. You know, there's, for example, there's different sectors in society who are interested in this and interested in that. And is it the case that they don't engage this particular group that I'm going to mention? Do they not engage with the process? Because it has been said to me on a number of occasions that there's no reference to the Irish language in our community plan and no reference to it in our corporate plan. Now, that might be wrong, but I have to ask the question because there are groups out there like Pobl Ar Newell, there are groups out there like Sru na Heranya, and you know, sometimes they'll seek meetings with us to say that they're not feeling corporately reflected by the council. And, you know, that could be a habit. It could be a habit. It could be a habit of non-engagement in these processes, you know. But I know whenever I go to a meeting of Pobl Ar Newell later this week, you know, they're wondering about how to be heard. So I'm wondering, is that reflected in our corporate plan? And hopefully it is, you know, in some way or other. I want to be able to go back to those people and give them an answer when I meet them later this week. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. So we do provide a variety of opportunities to engage with us, and we do, you know, identify that if communities can request particular engagements, you know, if they feel that there isn't a specific one tailored to them, but there are, you know, we use a whole range of communication channels to provide opportunities to engage. In terms of inclusion of the Irish language, the corporate plan is a high-level strategic document. It sets out the direction for the next 4 years. And I suppose the detail below those strategic objectives will be set out in the performance report cards, which will now be identified, and also in the directorate and service plans. But we do, under people and communities, have a core objective to value and enrich our heritage. And that includes the diverse and dynamic cultural heritage in the district. So there is a clear objective relating to our cultural heritage, which will then provide the opportunity for the detail to be set out below that from the respective service.
Thank Kim for your answer. I think the issue still remains, and I'm not going to fault anybody, the issue still remains that the Irish language and its richness and its rootedness in this council area doesn't find expression in even a reference in the corporate plan. And I'm wondering, can we remedy that now? Or does it have to be evidence-based on the basis of engagement? Because there's a gap. There's a gap in the process because obviously Pobal Éire Newell, obviously the parents of the hundreds of children who go to Gael Scoilina in Oma and Fermanagh, they don't take part in these processes because they're there, their passion is there, their cultural expression is there, but there must be some sort of legacy issue, historical issue, where they don't participate and they're not sought out for their specific take on things. I mean, reference to culture and heritage is fine, but is the Irish language something that dare not be mentioned in name? And if I don't ask this question on behalf of those hundreds of families, well then there's something seriously wrong. That's my point. Thank you.
John?
Chair, thank you. Just I suppose as Kim says, the corporate plan is a very high level document. If you look through the whole corporate plan, you will not see any of the programmes, individual programmes mentioned in relation, whether it be the environment, whether it be culture, whether it be poverty, whether it be whatever. We don't mention individual groups or individual programmes. Those sorts of aspects are left for the report cards and indeed for the annual director plans as to the work that we do. And I think it has been recognised that the work that we do in relation to the Irish language is as good as what is going on in any district in the region. So what actually happens on the ground, I suppose the difference between this corporate plan and the last corporate plan is that heritage is a central part of this. And when we talk about heritage, we're very much talking about the cultural heritage of the area in which we live. So very much part of that cultural heritage will be the development of programmes. And we have an Irish language action plan, which is reported, and there's an all-member briefing in relation to the action plan. But that is that's really to report to members at an operational level. The corporate plan is very much a strategic document which sets the strategic direction of the organisation, and it wouldn't be the place, because if we do it for the Irish language, then we do it for every other group and every other organisation and every other function that we have within the council.
I agree.
Thank you. Just on the corporate plan priorities on climate action, and on page 17, it states that that the council will be a net zero council by 2040, net zero district by 2042. What is the difference between council and district in that there? And then could we just elaborate what exactly does net zero mean? Because I'm kind of confused. Are we saying that we will be producing no carbon whatsoever by 2040? Because in the best will in the world, even if all our vehicles are electric, the electricity will be creating carbon that we're charging them with. So just district and council, and just exactly what we mean by net zero on that, please.
Well, I can clarify firstly. So in terms of net zero council, we're referring to us as an organisation. So the council as an organisation and our own emissions. And then net zero district is the place, the district as a whole. And those commitments reflect what we have set out in our existing climate change and sustainable development strategy. I'm going to ask John to comment on the other point around what zero means.
Thank you, Chair. So just as Kim has pointed out, a net zero council and a net zero district are two different measures within the climate change and sustainable development strategy. A net zero council relates to those emissions, scope 1, 2, and indeed our scope 3 emissions that as a council contribute to our overall carbon footprint. So it's all of the things that we do as a council, but obviously the council is only one part of the wider district. So we have lots of small, medium and large businesses. We have almost over 116,000 residents across the district. We have visitors who come in. They all contribute and all have their own individual carbon footprint as well. So a net zero district by 2042 is actually, it's how we work in partnership and collaboration then with within that wider framework. That's very much, I suppose, an objective within the community plan. For the purposes of the corporate plan, and net zero council is focusing in on our own activities. Net zero is, as you're absolutely right, Councillor Green, that there will continue to be emissions, but net zero is about where there's on the plus side, where there are emissions and what we then do to offset those emissions. So that could be things around looking at the green energy. So you mentioned about the consumption of electricity. Certainly as a council, we always seek to procure off green tariffs. So looking at electricity that's produced and fed into the grid that's coming from sustainable sources. Also then looking at other sources of sustainable energy into the future as well. So net zero there are pluses and minuses, and it's what we can do as a council in terms of our own carbon footprint to reduce that to net zero by 2040. And I suppose the other thing just to note is that that's significantly in advance of the target within Northern Ireland to set it in the Climate Act, which is actually working towards net zero by 2050.
Councillor Green.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in again. I will be shocked if any of us is about in 2040 that we are net zero. I will be then absolutely flabbergasted if by 2042 the district is net zero. So that's taking in all industries, quarrying, farming, cement factory, everything. That in our corporate plan we are saying that this district will be net zero by 2042. It is complete pie in the sky if I'm reading that right and thinking of what we're saying. Now, as far as the council, what ability have we to say that we could be net zero by 2040? Because we are not producing our own electricity. So if the electricity isn't net zero and being produced by renewables, we are at the mercy of the electricity companies. So how can we put that down in our corporate plan that would be what we'll achieve?
Chair, because we've already made that commitment in our climate change and sustainable development strategy. The council has already set out that commitment and made that its position. We have already reflected that, and the corporate plan is just reflecting the commitments that the council has already made in that strategy.
I really think we should be honest with as a council then. And I don't know my party position, Rhiannon, but I really think we need to look at them targets and be honest with our electorate that if we are claiming that, I'm flabbergasted. When was that set? I presume it was a few years ago when there was a climate crisis voted through here to declare a climate crisis. But the solutions, I see what we're hoping to do. I don't see any solutions of how we're going to do it. I think we have no control over what electricity we buy. It'll still be produced by oil and gas, I would say, the majority of it come 2040. I'm baffled.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to bring John on this and then hopefully we can kind of round this up. John?
Thank you, Chair. So the targets, Net Zero Council, Net Zero District are, as has been referred to, agreed targets within the Council's Climate Change and Sustainable Development Strategy that was approved by the Council in 2020. We launched the action plan in 2021. Since that time, we've been providing twice yearly, update reports to the Environment and Services Committee on the delivery of the climate action plan, and actually in the most recent reports, I just can't remember the month off the top of my head, but in the most recent reports certainly we would have been reporting a downward trajectory. So in terms of turning the curve, a downward trajectory in terms of our Scope 1, Scope 2 emissions in respect of our estate, and also increasingly focusing in on the reducing of emissions across our fleet. Within that regard, there's a number of specific actions that we've included in the performance improvement plan for this particular year. So looking at, you've mentioned about fleet, looking at alternative sustainable fuels, things like HVO, which have it's a net zero emissions at the tailpipe, albeit there will of course be emissions involved in the production of the vehicles, but they are nonetheless net zero emissions at the tailpipe. And I know there's probably others within this chamber that are more versed on tailpipe emissions than I am, but things like HVO trials, biomethane, I know certainly that's in respect of our own corporate plans. So we are on a trajectory of downward. It will be challenging, and I suppose just for information, and we do actually have control over where we procure energy from. Yes, it comes through the Northern Ireland electricity networks at the minute, but there's a range of providers out there and they take off supplies from a range of sustainable sources. And increasingly, as part of our commitment to climate action, we're looking at how we green our procurement procedures as well, to build in consideration of climate into all of our decision making within the council, including within procurement frameworks.
Okay, members, can I get a proposer and a seconder for the recommendations? Proposed by Councillor Rainey. Seconded by Councillor Buchanan. All right, is everyone agreed? Councillor Green, I'm kind of, unless you've got a counter proposal to make here. Okay.
I just want to abstain from that decision because I don't believe them targets are feasible.
Okay, well, the recommendations have been proposed and seconded. Are we all in agreement aside from Councillor Green's abstention? Okay, thank you. That's passed. Okay, moving on then to item 4.2, which is to consider the report on performance improvement. And I would maybe just also just say, members, you'll have seen the agenda. It's very, very heavy tonight with some quite high level, intense discussion ones, I suspect. So just keep that in mind.
Thank you, Chair. So this is an updated report on performance improvement and provides an update on our progress for last year's improvement plan at the 31st of March 2024 and the development of the performance improvement plan for the year ahead. And members will be aware that we have a statutory duty to publish annual improvement objectives by the 30th of June each year, and our self-assessment or annual performance report by the 30th of September each year, and that this process is subject to audit and assessment by the Northern Ireland Audit Office. So in terms of the plan for the previous financial year, we had 3 improvement objectives, and at Appendix 1 I've set out the report which shows the position at the end of the year, which identifies that there has been evidence of improvement being achieved across all 3 of the improvement objectives, with 86.5% of the actions having been allocated a green RAG status, showing that they've progressed in line with the identified parameters. We have 50 performance measures, and 30 of those, or 60%, have a green RAG status at the end of the year. 1 or 2% had an amber RAG status, showing that performance had not changed from the previous report. 6 or 12% of the measures had a red RAG status, indicating that performance was below the baseline or the target set, and 13 or 26% of performance measures had either no data to report or data was unvalidated. And of those, 4 of the performance measures will have validated data by the time we publish our annual performance report by the end of September. In terms of this current financial year, members at the February committee meeting agreed our improvement objectives for 24-25 for consultation. We haven't set out a paragraph at the table on page 3 of the report. We've set out the improvement objectives aligned to our corporate plan priorities. We did a public consultation process which generated 36 responses from public and 134 from staff, and that consultation report is also attached to Appendix 2. And the final version of the performance improvement plan taking account of consultation when we included an additional action based on feedback around the leisure centre booking system. So we're also going to undertake a comprehensive assessment of leisure services booking systems to try and optimise and streamline the booking process. And so based on that feedback, Chair, the recommendations are that we note the update on progress of the improvement plan for 23-24, note the consultation report on the performance improvement plan for 24-25, and approve the performance improvement plan for 24-25 as outlined in Appendix 3.
Members, do we have any comments on that report? Okay, if not, can I get a proposer and a seconder, please? See, Councillor Gannon proposing and Councillor McElduff seconding. All agreed? Thank you very much. Okay, moving on then to item 4.3 to consider the report of the Grant Aid Panel Paper C. Oh, 1 second, Councillor Buchanan.
Sorry, it was my mistake. I missed a declaration of interest in that item, please. I'll have to leave as a member of one of the groups that received money. All right, thank you.
Lively. Chair, I also wish to declare an interest as a member of one of the groups. I don't know if it's necessary to leave. I may just stay here, but not take part in the decision, Chair. And I wish you well in your term and as Chair as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Likewise, I've declared association with a number of the groups, so I'll just not be commenting on the report. Okay, Kim?
Okay, so the purpose...
Apologies. Councillor Donnelly?
Sorry, Chair, and good luck on your role this year. Similarly, I have a child that's benefiting from the Irish language bursary, but I don't feel the need to leave. I'll just not take part in any discussion on that.
Okay. Councillor McElduff?
Chair, I'm an officer of Carrickmore Gaelic Football Club, St Columkille's GAC, which is obviously referenced here. Thank you.
And Councillor Ganna?
Chair, it's more a procedural question about if so many people have declared an interest and can't take part, do they count towards a quorum on that matter? Just to confirm that we're okay there.
By my calculations, we still have 5 members who haven't declared an interest.
Oh, and Councillor Withers?
Yep, just on that as well. I'm Board of Governor on the St Oliver Plunkets as well, so just add that declaration of interest. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Donnelly?
Thanks, Chair. I was just going to say if there's an issue with quorum, if we just maybe vote on, split it, that you're voting on maybe the recommendations for the bursaries or for the groups, because we're not all involved with everything. We might be involved in one thing, if that's possible.
Yeah, we can do it. The meeting is still porous, so I think we still can proceed. Yeah.
Okay. If any problems arise, then we'll deal with it at that point. Okay, Kim?
Okay, so the purpose of the report then is to approve the recommendations of the Grant Aid E-panel meeting held on the 30th of May in respect of our first Grant Aid call and the papers at Appendix 1. To approve the recommendations of the Grant Aid panel held on the 30th of May in respect of the papers at Appendix 2, and also to note Grant Aid allocations up to a maximum of £500 as outlined in Appendix 3. So Item 2.1 then, grant aid bursaries first call. So members will know that the full suite of grant aid and bursary streams opened for applications on 7th of February and closed on 6th of March. At 2.11,
Kim, apology, Councillor Warrington, really, you can't be on your phone during a meeting. Sorry, like, I mean, I'm not having that, sorry. Okay, Kim.
at 2.11 then, I've set out the grant streams which were presented to the meeting of the grant aid panel on the 20th of March. The recommendations of the grant aid panel's meeting were considered at the April meeting of RNC, when the recommendation in respect of good relations grant aid was referred back to the grant aid panel for further review. The remaining grant aid and bursary schemes from the first call were presented then to a meeting of the grant aid panel on the 30th of May, and they're set out at paragraph 2.1.2. At paragraphs 2.13 and 2.14, I've set out all of the procedures in terms of applications being assessed against the relevant objectives and how the assessment process was carried out. So at 2.15, we refer to Report 1 at Appendix 1. So the Grant Aid Panel agreed to support the recommendations as outlined in Report 1 or Appendix 1 to the panel in respect of the grant allocations for community premises support and community services project development. So all of the groups are listed in the appendix. In relation to Good Relations Grant Aid, Report 2 at Section 1.1 of that report, members considered the officer report and reviewed the officer recommendations as outlined alongside the scalable options for the allocation of Good Relations Grant Aid, and there were 2 scalable options. The Grant Aid Panel agreed to uphold its original recommendations in relation to Good Relations Grant Aid and agreed that these are again presented to the Regeneration and Community Committee for approval, and to note that an appeals panel has been established for any applicant wishing to appeal the decision of the Grant Aid Panel. So the recommendations are that the committee approves the recommendations of the Grant Aid E-Panel meeting held on the 30th of May in respect of the first report for Community Premises Support Grant and Community Premises Project Development Funding, and in relation to Grant Aid Panel Report 2 in respect of Good Relations Funding, and also that the committee notes the awards approved by the relevant head of service of awards of up to £500.
Thank you, Kim. And I suppose just for the sake of clarity, the group I was declaring an interest in respect to was the Golden Apple Players. Okay. Councillor McElduff.
Thank you, Chair. Appendix 3, item 251. Would it be a good idea, if there is such people waiting, maybe there isn't, a reserve list for the Irish language bursaries? I know that some people achieve a LEFA bursary from the Department for Communities, so therefore they're ineligible for support from the council. But there may be others in waiting for a reserve list who do not qualify for a LEFA grant and could avail of that council funding that is set aside for this. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Kim. All right. Okay. Councillor Green.
Yeah, I would like to second Barry's proposal there. Just on the good relations applications that was referred back in March, and it states the Grant Aid Panel then agreed with the original. Just on the format of the Grant Aid Panel, I know there was a long discussion about it previously. Did they then see, has the new criteria been put in where they can see the applications, and on this occasion were they fit to see the applications, and of the ones that were deemed not to have scored?
Yes, the new arrangements were in place and access was made available at the meeting to all of the applications, and members were taken through how to access and review all of the documentation.
Okay, do we have any additional comments at this stage? Okay, so we have a proposal by Councillor McElduff, I think, to create a reserve list in respect of the Irish language series, seconded by Councillor Green. Is everybody content? Okay, we're all content. Can I get a proposer and a seconder for the recommendations overall? I see Councillor Gannon, I see Councillor Rainey seconding. Okay, all content? Thank you very much. Okay. Then moving on to item 4.4, which is to consider the report on grant aid capital call opening, paper D.
Okay, so the purpose of this report is to seek council approval to open the capital grant aid call for the 24-25, 25-26 financial years, to consider introducing a district electoral area approach to the distribution of capital grant aid funding, and to also consider recommendations for decommitting and withdrawal of letters of offer for previous capital grant aid schemes where project end dates have expired and no evidence of project start or progression is evident. So it's proposed to open the call for capital grant aid on Tuesday, 10th of September for a period of 6 weeks. That funding is primarily directed at community supporting and non-profit taking organisations. The projects must be capital in nature. Maximum funding of up to 75% of eligible expenditure is available to a maximum capital grant capped at £20,000. If a applicant group or project has received funding in previous rounds of capital funding, then they are not eligible for a period of 5 years subsequent to that to apply. And that also includes groups who have been successful under the Strategic Capital Grants Programme as well. The total budget available for the 24-25 financial year is £200,000, with financial provision of £100,000 identified for next year in terms of the estimates, providing a total budget of £300,000 to facilitate this call. And all successful applicants will have 2 years to complete, and that allows time for the necessary approvals to be put in place to progress projects to completion. It's proposed that we apply a DEA approach for distribution of the capital grant aid. This enables assurance around a spread of projects across the district. We will apply a 65% threshold as in previous years to ensure project quality, and projects will be ranked in score order within each DEA. The top 2 projects in each DEA that exceed the threshold then will be allocated funding, and remaining funds will be allocated in rank order until all funding has been expended. So grant call will be advertised widely, and the Council's Community Services newsletter will also include this, and Council officers will be available to support groups in terms of any queries. We have, in relation to the proposal around decommitting and withdrawal, so we currently have 7 letters of offer issued to groups from previous rounds of capital grant aid, and in terms of those projects, they have either not commenced or no claim has been submitted. And the 7 projects have a total grant value of just over £125,000. And you can see from 2.1.6 that these projects are going back quite some time. Council officers have undertaken sustained engagement with the 7 groups since the issue of the letters of offer, and project end dates have been extended to try and give up groups every opportunity to complete. However, there are occasions due to circumstances beyond council control where sometimes groups are unable to progress, and the allocation of that funding to groups who don't undertake their project then makes that funding not available to others who may have the opportunity or may be in a position to progress a project. So we are proposing that the council corresponds with each of the 7 groups, providing a final project closure date of 30th of September. And groups will be asked to decommit funding where they won't be able to achieve project completion by that date. And where they don't decommit, it's recommended that we approve the issue of a letter of withdrawal correspondence, and that then the decommitted funding is added to the existing capital grant fund for the proposed call. Groups who do decommit or who are issued with a letter of withdrawal will have the opportunity to reapply to the round of grant aid funding which will be opened, and that's providing they're not in receipt of a council strategic capital grant. So it's recommended that we approve the opening of the Capital Grant Aid Programme in line with the dates outlined in section 2.1.1. We add an indicative commitment of 100,000 in the 25-26 financial year to the current Capital Grant Aid budget of 200,000 for allocation in the 24-25 financial year. We approve the DEA approach to distribution of funding, with funding awarded to the top 2 projects that exceed the threshold in each DEA, and then remaining funds allocated to the next highest rank projects, inclusive of all DEAs until funding has been expended. We approve the final extension to project end dates of outstanding Capital Grant Aid projects outlined in section 2.1.6 to 30th of September, and thereafter the issue of letters of withdrawal where appropriate, and approve the virement of underspend from previous unclaimed projects to the 24-25 to 25-26 capital grant call.
Okay, Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. There's a lot in this report, and I would be concerned that maybe we would be rushing the decision to make the call on it tonight. I'm particularly concerned about the consideration to withdraw letters of offer from groups within the district. And to be perfectly honest, I know we've been told that, effort has been made to get in contact with the groups, but it's a lot to make the decision to withdraw letters of offer. So I would propose that we defer this to the next meeting until there's time to have proper engagement, and that we have some engagement presented to us from the groups to make clear that they understand that we are considering withdrawing the letters of offer. I don't want to rush into it, because I think to be perfectly honest, I think it's the council's reputation too, that, if we have made letters of offer, we must be clear with the groups that we're now considering withdrawing it. So I'm proposing that we withdraw this paper tonight and defer to the next meeting.
Okay. Councillor Green.
Yeah, I'll second that proposal.
Okay, do we have any? Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not involved in capital grants any longer, but I was involved with this particular scheme. And I shared the office with the person that worked with the groups in terms, and I saw the level of support that was provided to each and every one of the groups that were in receipt of this grant. They got huge amounts of support through every single step of the process. And and I can see some of the groups there that we would have been involved with back in the day. I'd say there's one group there from 2015. So I just want to point out that there would be ongoing, regular, very regular contact with each of those groups. So just for your information.
I will return to you, Councillor Donnelly, but I just do want to bring in Councillor Warrington here.
Thank you, Chair. The concern that if we did put it off, no problem with putting it off, but our next meetings are scheduled for the start of July. And let's be honest with you, if there's a small turnout here tonight, I have a funny notion it'll be even smaller at the meeting at the start of July. So then that's going to put it back to September. So just to keep that in mind. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, Kim, do you want to come in on that?
Could I just ask members if is it the particular recommendation in relation to the decommitting and letters of withdrawal? Can we approve the recommendations around the opening of the grant call in September and bring back the decommitting, the report extract around the potential letters of withdrawal?
Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. I think one relates to the other, because if we withdraw the letters of offer, there may be more money then to go into that capital grant fund. So the pot could be larger or it could be less if we decide to keep going with those groups. I'm only looking, I know we were sent through the list with the names of the groups. One jumped out at me. It's one that the council actually engaged with and support for other things. I was very surprised that they haven't proceeded. I don't know the detail of any of the other groups, so I'm just think we need to be very careful to be withdrawing funding from groups like that we're already working with. I think if we have to wait a month, and if it's, so the month is only going to be 3 weeks, that, so be it. I'd rather get it right and have the right, agree the pot in advance instead of it being reduced. If we change our mind on the letters of offer, I think they're both interrelated.
I think, I suppose just to clarify, we're not proposing to issue letters of withdrawal or asking them to decommit now. We're giving them until the end of September. That will be after we open the grant call. So if we don't take the decision, I suppose we could still take the decision to open the grant call early in September, and if the decommittal process proceeds, then we can add to the budget. But I suppose we could separate, I think we could still separate the two processes out if members were content.
Councillor Gannon.
Thank you, Chair, and I do agree with most of what Councillor Donnelly is saying. I do think Kim is probably right in the way that you could proceed your grant call, and then should more money become available through whatever means, increase the pot and therefore increase the amount of projects. I think that is feasible, and I think it is to go ahead. We are able to go ahead with that section. But I do share the concern around these letters of withdrawal and decommitting of funding. I think it would be very important. I don't know if these groups have been warned. Have they been explicitly told that this is coming? And because just to me, you sometimes with community groups and things like that needs to be said. And I would support the proposal to defer this particular section of the report and the recommendations, and ask that we write to each of these groups and we make it official that this is a decision that may be coming down the line within the next few weeks or months, which it may be, depending on how these meetings go and whatnot with other external events impacting it, to give them a heads up that this, obviously it's probably in the terms and conditions of the grant that it's there, but let's be honest, when it comes to terms and conditions, there's quite a lot of terms and conditions, and it mightn't be to the forefront of their mind. So it would be a reminder to them of this that I would like to see sent out, and to give them an opportunity to respond and to get kicked into gear and a wee bit on it.
Just to be clear, there has been sustained engagement with all of the groups over a long period of time. So some of these awards are going back to 2015-16. Officers have been in ongoing engagement to ask for project updates and to refer to the conditions of the letters of offer. We have extended beyond the terms of the letters of offer, which provide a 2-year period for completion. So this is not new information to any of the groups. They will certainly be aware. We haven't identified the potential to move to ask them to decommit or to issue letters of withdrawal because we needed to get council approval of that approach. So that hasn't been specifically mentioned to the groups, and that would have been our intention if we got council approval tonight. But there has been, the groups are very much aware of the need to progress.
Okay. Councillor McElduff.
You, Chair. I'm aware that at least 3 of those clubs are not guilty of a lack of communication. I'm aware that they've been in direct communication with the council in the past 3 weeks. So that shocks me, because the description here is lack of communication. I know in the case of one group that I'm not a member of, that it's a development situation where they're in conversation with DFI Roads, and it's about completing the pathway. It's about verge strengthening. So, the offer is there, but in the midst of them having the discussions with DFI Roads, there's a suggestion of withdrawing the funding. So, I don't think there is a lack of communication, because in the 3 cases I'm familiar with, there has been direct communication in each case within the past 3 weeks.
Okay. Councillor Gannon.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for letting me back in. Look, I don't doubt the communication and engagement from our council team and staff, and I don't doubt the communication from many of the groups, as Barry is outlining there. I'm sure they are, and there's a lot of problems in the way for them, perhaps. But I think the way to go forward, perhaps hearing what's been said by everyone, is to obviously to defer with the intention of communicating with the groups that this is being considered. And then potentially we may need to consider each of these groups individually, because if there's cases, as Barry has outlined there, if it's because DFI, there's conversations there, and we've all had our pains with DFI to get things done, we'd be a bit hypocritical, given some of the things we've said in this chamber, to remove funding from them. And I think it may nearly be a case-by-case basis. We'll have to look at it. And I'd be proposing or amending the proposal that's there, that we communicate with them to say that this is something that is being considered explicitly, to say this is something that's being considered. If they can say, give their reasoning as to why they haven't come forward yet to claim or started, and then we can consider it, as we've said, on a case-by-case basis and go forward from there. Because if it's up to DFI's fault, it can take quite a while, as we know. Thank you.
Just to say that there's no desire on the part of officers to be obstructive in terms of working with the groups. The officers have worked very hard to engage with all of the groups and to enable projects to progress, and we all want to see projects progress to conclusion. But this is a matter of a lack of progress, and in terms of our processes, and we are audited on all of our processes, so we need to show that there is project progression, and that's really the intention of this. And if things can be moved to a conclusion, then we would welcome that.
Councillor Donnelly, I'm just conscious there's 5 recommendations here. Is your proposal that we defer the entirety of the report?
It is, Chair, yes, and with a counter, I suppose, or an amendment to it, that the officers engage directly and in writing with each of the groups to state an intention to withdraw if we do not hear from them by a specific date.
Yeah.
And that consideration after that point will be made, similar to what Councillor Gannon's saying, on a case-by-case basis after that. And I don't see why it couldn't be done in time for July if we give them 2 weeks' notice or whatever to come back. And if they don't come back, we've done everything. I just don't want to be in the position that we withdraw a letter of offer from a community group, and it's every group's desperate for their funding, so I don't want to make a rash decision on it. So we're talking a few weeks here. It's not a lot in the scheme of things.
Okay, this is the only proposal that we have on the floor at the minute that's been seconded. Are we content with deferring this matter to the next meeting of Regeneration and Community Committee? Okay, I'm not hearing any dissension. All right, thank you, folks. That'll be deferred then. Okay. Moving on then to consider the report on the draft Inclusive Economy Action Plan, Paper E.
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this report is to seek council approval of the Fermanagh Inclusive Economy Action Plan attached as Appendix 1. And the purpose, members did agree the draft document for consultation at the March meeting of the committee. The purpose of the plan is to provide a pathway to deliver against the shared prosperity theme in the council's new corporate plan, and also to set out partnership approaches which support the economy, infrastructure and skills theme of the community plan. And the plan includes a detailed analysis of the economic baseline of the area, a comprehensive analysis of the strategic context, and a detailed socio-economic profile setting out the key challenges and opportunities. We have undertaken significant stakeholder engagement throughout the development of the plan, and then also we conducted public consultation on the draft plan, and that consultation report is attached at Appendix 2. So the plan sets out 3 strategic themes, which are set out at paragraph 2.5, driving sustainable growth and innovation, building a place for sustainable business, and developing an inclusive, skilled workforce. And under each of those 3 themes, there are a number of aims which are set out in the table on pages 2 and 3. And alongside that, a detailed action plan is included within the document, setting out a range of interventions, delivery partners and outputs. It's fully recognised that we need leadership and action from a range of partners across the statutory sector, the business and the community voluntary sector to deliver on this plan. And the Community Planning Partnership will engage a range of partners to progress those. That will link to existing mechanisms such as the Labour Market Partnership and the Visitor Experience Development Plan Delivery Partnership. And then at a council level, the council's own Economic Development and Inward Investment Working Group will lead on delivery of key actions and alignment of this plan with Invest NI's emerging sub-regional plan. And there will be reports brought to the Regeneration Community Committee in relation to progress. And an immediate focus will be placed on the development of an investment proposition for the district as set out under Theme 2, as well as on the provision of industrial land in conjunction with Invest NI's emerging land and property strategy. So it's recommended that the Council approves the Inclusive Economy Action Plan 24 to 29 and that officers proceed to engage with community planning and other key partners to progress towards delivery of the identified actions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, and I'm seeing Councillor McElduff.
Thank you, Chair. And even in reference to the last item, I want to acknowledge absolutely the diligence of the team that deals with grant aid. You know, I'm not close to that action at all, but I've picked it up over the years that that team is very, very good at their job, really good at their job. I've heard that repeatedly. You know, due process, due diligence, all that happens. In relation to the inclusive economy strategy or action plan, a couple of questions. At the recent conference that the council, in association with a council chair, organised, Niall O'Donnell spoke at that, and he talked about, I think, is he Intertrade Ireland, or is he Centre for Cross-Border Studies?
Centre for Cross-Border Studies.
Right. Thank you. He referenced the future importance of spatial alliance with Sligo, and from an economic development point of view. And he talked about it in the southern system, that it's a hub and that we're a natural spoke that hasn't been, you know, identified properly in that southern plan. So I think that's important. I think it's important too that in a changing situation, a developing situation around tourism promotion, and this council recently passed a motion along those lines, following on from an economy minister statement about hidden heartlands and Wild Atlantic Way. Now, not so much Ireland's ancient east in our context, but that linkages that we're going to form there. So I'm thinking, can this be incorporated into the economic plan? I also know, I'm wondering, is there a reference in the document to the shared island as well? Because shared island funding has been very important for the like of Culca and other projects, you know, in association with Cavan County Council. So to me, I would like to see events of the last couple of months written into our plan, because I don't think it makes enough reference to that, what Niall O'Donnell was talking about at the business conference. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. So the plan, I suppose, is setting out the broad themes and the aims that we need to, very much based on the evidence base of our economy and the gaps that exist. I suppose how we take it forward then is in our hands in terms of the partnerships that we develop. And we have been very clear in terms of our ongoing work with Invest NI, and members will be aware that we were asked to submit to Invest NI our priorities and also how we, our preferences in relation to sub-regional groupings and alliances. And the Council has clearly identified as part of that work that it sees alignment with a number of cross-border partners, and that's certainly something that would be very much on our agenda in terms of how we take this work forward.
Councillor Green.
I think Barry wanted to come back in on a point, so I'll refer to him for.
Okay. Councillor McAuliffe.
You know the way MSW is referenced, the tourism strategy is referenced. There's reference to various regional strategies. I think there needs to be explicit reference of those partnerships in this document, because this is a document for the future. This is a document which is not entirely up to date, although a huge amount of work has gone into it, but can be marginally updated with those references. Instead of an understanding that they will be among the partnerships, let's state it. Let's state it, because a document is something where things are stated, not presumed. So I think the geography of this council area is such that if we don't highlight dual market access, if we don't highlight those partnerships, then who else is ever going to do it? You know, this is not North Antrim, this is a border corridor council where we're going to be developing economic partnerships. And I think in our forward-looking strategy, it should be explicitly referenced, not understood without being mentioned. That is genuinely my position on the matter. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor McAuliffe, do you want to make that a proposal? Okay. Councillor Green.
Yeah, and I'll second that. I suppose Sligo was mentioned there, and I would just remind the council, one of our biggest employers is a cross-border company that sits on the Fermanagh-Cavan border on both sides of it. And I would also point out that our geopark is a cross-border initiative. I would also say about the Shared Island Fund and the Ulster Canal that is hopefully going to bring great economic benefits to the Newton Butler Clonus area, which again is that cross-border element on it. So, and I suppose I could go on, but yeah, I would agree with Barry. I think it needs to be stated.
To approve, subject to that.
Okay. Members, are we happy to approve subject to that slight amendment? Okay, good stuff. Thank you, folks. Right. Moving on then to item 4.6, which is to consider report on tourism initiatives, paper F. Kim.
So this report provides an update on a sponsorship request from the Sustainable Tourism Network to support the hosting of the Inspiring Sustainable Tourism Conference 25, planned to take place on the 23rd of January 25 at the Lough Erne Resort, and an update on the Sperrins Partnership Project. The correspondence has been received from the Sustainable Tourism Network, formerly known as Sustainable Travel Ireland. It's a membership training and certification body for the sustainable tourism industry and the leading body in Ireland for sustainable tourism. And it plans to have its conference in the district in 2025 in the Lough Erne Resort with around 150 to 200 delegates from the tourism, hospitality and travel business travelling to attend. So it's certainly a tourism attractor to the district. It's recommended that we contribute £2,000 to be a headline sponsor, subject to all other sponsorship being in place from the various sources. And for this investment, the council chair will make the opening address. We will have visibility in terms of our logo on all online and offline material, and the exhibition space will be made available to showcase council initiatives linked to sustainable tourism, and at least 2 delegate passes will be provided. And this very much aligns to the direction set out in the council's visitor experience development plan, and also the work of the Culca Lakelands Geopark in the areas of sustainability and climate action. In terms of the Sperrins Partnership Project, an update is provided on several initiatives taken forward within the partnership, including work of the Outdoor Partnership, the Activity Development Officer. So the Sperrins Partnership was successful in obtaining funding and has an officer in place through the Outdoor Partnership. And they have taken forward a number of projects which are outlined on pages 3 and 4 of the document, of the report. at item 222, then the Sperrins Partnership is also taking forward the AONB management plan through funding provided by DAERA. An AONB project officer has been recruited and is in post, and members will be aware that consultation has progressed on the development of an AONB management plan, and indeed there was a recent event which elected members engaged with. The consultation process and time frame is set out at page 5 of the report. And then in terms of DAERA Environment Fund, there are some other projects outlined or funded, including fixed point photography, the establishment of a Sperrin AONB wildfire group, and then a review and update of the Sperrin Outdoor Recreation Action Plan. And also the Sperrins Partnership has taken forward a Sperrins walking programme in 23-24, which the council participates in and has a specific Fermanagh and Omagh event. The partnership has reviewed the Sperrins Partnership Agreement, and this is really to update the arrangements around governance and management, with additional staff recruited and the AONB management plan funding being available as well. So the updated partnership agreement is attached to Appendix 2, and approval is sought for the Chief Executive to sign that updated partnership agreement. So members will be aware that we currently contribute £22,000 per annum to the Sperrins Partnership, and all 4 partner councils make the same contribution. The partnership is requesting that consideration is given to increases in the 25-26 and 26-27 year to increase by £3,000 each year. This covers the increasing costs of salaries in terms of inflationary increases, and also provides some programming budget to enable activities to take place under, for example, the AONB management plan, and ensure that there is some budget available to do that. So it's recommended the council provide sponsorship of £2,000 to the Sustainable Tourism Network for its Inspiring Sustainable Tourism Conference in January 2025, notes the Sperrin Partnership Update Report, and grants approval for the Chief Executive to sign the revised partnership agreement, and agrees to make provision for an increased financial provision in the estimates for 25-26 and 26-27 for the partnership as set out in section 3.1, and that will be subject to confirmation of matching contributions across all partner councils.
Do we have any comments on that, members? Okay. Can we get a proposer and a seconder for that? Councillor Donnelly and Councillor Buchanan is seconding, and we are all agreed. Good stuff. Okay. Moving on to item 4.7, to consider the report on the meeting of the Agriculture Liaison Group held on the 30th of May 2024. I think that's just for noting.
It's just to, yes, just note they approve the recommendations from the meeting of the ALG in terms of as set out at section 8 of the report.
Councillor Green.
Oppose that.
Okay. And Councillor McAduff.
Are you coming back to tourism at any stage in the meeting? Or is that all tourism initiatives there? I had a tourism proposal, if you wanted to take it in relation to this.
Well, we're going to the report on events and festivals. That might be
What?
a point. Yeah. I mean,
It's just a quick proposal if you want to take it, you know.
yeah, do you know what? We'll take it now. We'll take it.
Aye, okay, thank you very much, Chairman. And it's tourism at its heart. It's just us using our ability to lobby. Can I ask that the council work with TransLink in an effort to reinstate the Sperrin Rambler bus service for Saturdays? And it's allowing people to visit the Sperrins, Gorton, Plumbridge, Cranagh, Gorton, Glen Forest Park, Glen Park. And this is coming from people in the area that it is in demand. So the point that's been made to me is that people in that, in Omagh, for example, in many cases or elsewhere, may not have access to a vehicle to visit the Sperrins. And it's so rich, but what has been developed, for example, at Gorton, Glen Forest Park, is so rich that, and like the giant statue, you know, it's really, really popular. Like today, there were 70 walkers in the Gorton Glen Forest Park from Donegal. So it's really, really important that this be developed further. We have mentioned this before. It was a service that was in place previously, and it's a TransLink type initiative. But I would propose that we write the TransLink to see if that can be reinstated. Thank you, Chair.
Do we have a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Rainey. And apologies for my throat, folks. Turns out putting posters up at 3 o'clock in the morning isn't good for you. Okay, let's see. If we're content there, then yeah. Can we get a seconder for the report on the Agriculture Liaison Group? And Councillor Rainey, fantastic. Okay, moving on then to Community and Wellbeing Directorate reports, 5.1, to consider the report on Christmas 2024.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The purpose of the report is to provide members with an update on Christmas planning. We had said in September of 23 that we would review all of the Christmas allocations and the work that was being done in the lead up to Christmas upon the release of the census data from 2021, and that has now happened, and it does impact on the allocations that we make and what becomes a settlement and what doesn't. The issues in relation to festive lighting and Christmas trees in rural villages, the Christmas lighting has always been, and probably the best way, is based on population-based allocations. We have reviewed the population allocations in line with the 2021 NISRA settlement figures, and a funding matrix has been developed based on population size, with allocations ranging from £275 for a population or community of 101 to 200 to 4,625 for a population between 3,000 and 3,100, which would be our outside of the two towns of Omagh and Enniskillen would be the biggest population that we have. A small number of settlements with a population of less than 100 currently avail of support. It's proposed that they apply for a contribution of £125 towards festive lights. It mirrors the previous population-based approach that is in 2015, and members will be aware that since 2020, since COVID, that we also have projectors in the 5 strategic settlements: Carrickmore, Dromore, Fintona, Irvinstown and Listonskea, and we plan that those would continue. In 2022, DFI changed the application for the license for lights had to be made by the body which was responsible for it. And in that sense, we made an additional payment to each of those groups of £540 to enable the community groups to take out that public liability insurance. And it is proposed that would continue as we move ahead. In relation to Christmas trees in rural towns and villages, in the past, we give the opportunity for rural towns and villages to apply to the council, or it was really based on an historic, really ad hoc basis in many cases of who received a Christmas tree and who didn't. And those were purchased by the council, were installed by the council and were dismantled by the council. In looking at what are the options available to this, one is that status quo, that we continue with that model. The second option is to provide community grant aid support, and in working through the figures, financial support of £350 to rural towns and villages across the district that have a population of over 350 or have had a Christmas tree in the past, so that nobody is disadvantaged from anything. The cost of the Christmas tree is anticipated to be up to £190. So there is money available there to the community group in order to install it and to take it down. The option 3 is to provide a mixed model where some towns would get a Christmas tree and others wouldn't. The preferred option, which officers are concluding, is that of option 2, to provide that enhanced financial support to the rural towns and villages. Groups would be afforded that flexibility on how the allocation is used, and some groups, and we would really encourage this, may choose to purchase an artificial tree that will service their needs for many years to come. And I suppose with sustainability issues, I suppose there are strong arguments in respect of that. That the reallocation of the budget, provides a more equitable distribution of who gets a tree and who doesn't get a tree, and so therefore it is seen as the best option for the council. And again, as always happens, council officer support and advice will be available to those community groups in the run up to Christmas. In relation to the main towns of Enniskillen and Omagh, the council will be responsible for the festive features that are installed and managed by the council. There is a total budget included in the estimates process of £79,000 in relation to that. Members will be aware of what became known as the bid Christmas tree here in Enniskillen, and it's proposed that continues for this year. And also, I suppose, an important bit about trying to encourage people to come to our towns, come to our villages. There will be a marketing and communication programme and an events programme linked to the Christmas programme. Christmas switch on event is planned for the Saturday the 23rd of November in both Enniskillen and Omagh. There will be a programme of music in the 2 urban towns in the 4-week period up to Christmas at weekends, and there will be a Christmas events programme that brings together all different types of wraparound music and entertainment around Christmas proposition in the district, in the Strual Arts Centre, the Ardone, Enniskillen Castle, and in the Marble Arch Caves. And I suppose the marketing and promotion of that in partnership with Fermanagh Lakeland Tourism is vital in order to drive business in our towns. Rural towns and villages receiving a financial contribution towards the festive lighting will be allowed to use 25% of that towards the cost of a community switch-on event, if that's what they wish. So, Chair, in the recommendations, it's recommended that the Council approves the allocation of festive lights as detailed in Appendix 1, approves option 2 in terms of Christmas tree provision, notes the Council's contribution for the installation and dismantling of the bid Christmas tree in Enniskillen here, and approves the Christmas events programme and the marketing and communications that's associated with that. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Withers.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, John, for that report. I can see kind of the logic for moving along that road as somebody who was contacted last year about issues around Christmas trees and some of the condition of existing stock. However, in contact with some groups, I've also been told that the issue may not particularly around finance is on the tree itself, but the installation and removal of it, which could be considerably more than the £350. And from my own reading of it, I just don't think it's clear enough in the report and the appendix there about the comparison between what was given last year and what will be given this year, and how that would affect groups. In light of those concerns, I would prefer to see a sort of a more in-depth report in terms of a comparison between last year and this year, and what this change would mean in terms of the finance available to the groups, and also if there was any work done in terms of an idea of what it would cost to install a tree for a community group, particularly in those smaller towns and villages. So that's what I would be proposing on that, is that comes back to us next month as well, and to further the whole report really with that in mind. And secondly, if consideration could be given to also, I know there's a small allocation of funding there as regards lighting, But again, judging by previous experience, Christmas lights are maybe not necessarily number one priority for some of those smaller settlements, and they would actually prefer a contribution towards like a Christmas themed event, which is allocated for there in Ormond and Enniskillen, but it's not allocated in the likes of the smaller towns and villages, and that may come under events and festivals, and I appreciate that, but it is considered there for Ormond and Enniskillen. So I would like to propose as well that there's more flexibility in terms of the allocation of funding for not just lights, but Christmas themed events on those smaller settlements. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Gannon.
Thank you, Chair. And similar to Councillor Withers, had a few kind of questions about this report. And maybe it was just perhaps me reading it wrong rather than anything else. So first of all, in terms of looking at the costs, from my reading of the report, these groups will receive, or in particular, I'm looking at the small rural groups in particular here, £275 towards lights, and then an additional £350. Is that correct? An additional £350 regarding a tree. And if they request, will the DFI licence still be covered by the council for said tree?
Chair, the DFA licence would be additional again on top of that, the 540.
But the council would still cover that?
Absolutely,
Perfect.
absolutely. If the groups, and some groups don't, it must be understood that some groups don't ask for any assistance with lighting, or some areas don't. Some don't ask for assistance with trees, some don't ask for, and therefore won't require the £540 for the licence.
Brilliant. That's okay. That was from my reading of it. So I did pick up on that, right? I do share, as I said, same concerns as Councillor Withers regarding the community capacity to involve putting up these trees and making sure they're safely up, and any perhaps maintenance or things that come up during the festive period. I think it's important to note that we as a council, we do have some certain expertise and specialists and equipment and people who know how to do this, whereas maybe that might not be accessible in the community group and they might have to pay for it. And that, as has been said, could be substantially more than that £350, depending on who's doing it. I wouldn't know off the top of my head. I would have to go and look at it, but it could be more from what I've heard from talking to a few community groups. So I would like this to come back to us, and I think perhaps I was kind of maybe thinking off the top of my head that I'd be more leaning towards that option one at the moment, simply because of that capacity within the small rural communities. Bigger rural villages can perhaps do it, but in particular the dispersed rural communities, perhaps there may not be, or where there isn't the capacity. But I'm happy to defer it and get more detail next month. But that would be my main concern. And how we would make up any gap if they have to get people in to put it up, and it's more than the price that more than the money we're getting. Thank you.
And Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm kind of in the same vein of the previous councillors. I'd be more than happy for the report to be deferred till next month. And I think whether if Adam seconded that there or yeah. But I do think that we should consider a combination of option 1 and option 2 when the report comes back. Some groups won't be ready to move to option 2. I think we need to be flexible and have an option that some groups can have option 1 this year or option 2. If that's possible, we should offer to the different groups. I think we shouldn't just move to one. This is the way we're doing it. I think we should be flexible at this stage. So I propose that is amended as a third option. Fourth option.
Chair, we can certainly consider that. I would say that will create complexities, in how we do business. Certainly, the clarity is good for having either one or the other, I suppose, and not creating a different approach for different communities. I suppose, just to have equality for all communities would be good.
Councillor Donnelly.
Just a quick one to come back on that one. Maybe just include it as an option and we can just rule it out next month and people have time to think about it. It's just to have it there as option 4, combination of option 1 and 2. I'll not hold you to it, John. We can discuss it again next month.
Councillor Withers, did you have a second separate proposal just with respect to flexibility, or are you just kind of happy for that to be looked at within the context of the deferral? Oh,
It was just around the smaller settlements there, so I'm thinking the likes of Altamuscan, Tatcheray, places like that, where they're only getting a small allocation anyway. But I just know from previous years, holding the likes of Christmas events, themed events, is more a priority. And if we could look at flexibility in terms of that as an option rather than just Christmas lighting as part of the report for next month. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Gannon, you're happy enough to support that? Okay. We've had that proposed and seconded that we will defer this and look at some other options. Are we generally content with? Oh, apologies, Councillor Green. Oh, Councillor Donnelly, yeah.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. Just wanted to ask a question. In terms of, there's mention here about groups maybe purchasing a tree they can reuse another year. How is that going to be worked in through these options? I'm just not clear on that. Will they pay for it up front and then each year they can draw down that funding? Is that how it works?
Yeah, the impression would be that they would pay up front, like, yes, and their contribution each year would aid the supply of that, I suppose. And ultimately, I think in the long run, it would be the cheaper version, more environmental, sustainable version. So, well, I know it's not something that all communities like, you know, they like the Rail 3, but I suppose it is something that we would encourage given our sustainability strategy.
It'd be something might be worth promoting with the different groups, because I'm sure there's going to be a lead-in time for anything like that, how quick they can source that type of a tree. May not be for this year, could be for next year, you know, just to have them to consider it maybe.
Okay, Councillor Green.
I'm just wondering, well, this wasn't what my point was going to be, but just after that last conversation, just how environmentally friendly is an artificial tree? I wonder if it would be the time, like a Christmas tree, can plant another Christmas tree, so we're always told that that's sustainable. That's how you sustain things. But an artificial tree that's made up of plastics and metal and everything, I'm just wondering how we get around the fact that that is environmentally friendly. I would really question that is the case. But that's just a comment I'd have. The other thing, I was looking through the list here, and maybe I missed it, but there is settlements called the Knox, Derryghannon, Coonan, Adramsea. I don't see them on it. Now, there might be more rural settlements, but we have them down in our community, in our local development plan as settlements, because they used to be called rural, dispersed rural communities. Then they were going to be done away with during our work, but some of us were determined to maintain them, and they are named in our documents as rural settlements. So I'm just wondering why the likes of the Knox, like it has this community centre, it has this group of houses, it's a developed area with a lot of houses, a lot of, so I would maintain that it's them group settlements that we have named as settlements should be also named on this. I would propose that.
Chair, we're taking our data directly from the census data of population sizes that is noted in the census. You know, I appreciate that there are many, whether it be hamlets, whether it be, you know, small rural communities that you would expect maybe to see there. But this is taken directly from the census data that has been supplied on the basis of the 2021 census.
I would prefer that we would look at our own documents of what we have down in our own local development plan, because I think that is one of the things that we have tried to say is that, you know, there is rural communities, you know, and we can't forget the rural communities. The likes of the Knox is one of the most vibrant rural communities there is. It's highly, it's densely occupied. It mightn't fall under that definition, but within a very small space of time or space, it's by far bigger than the likes of Maravili, Rusky, so to discount them, we have it down in our documents. So whatever we have down in our documents, local development plan, that I think that's what we should be going. So I'd be proposing that, or at least could we bring it back and have a look through our development plan and maybe have a suggestion on it or something.
Okay, do we have a seconder then for Councillor Green's proposal? Okay, Councillor Withers. Okay, so yeah, we have those two proposals then on the floor. Are we content with the proposal that we defer this? Okay, I'm seeing no position. Are we content with Councillor Green's proposal, seconded by Councillor Withers? Everyone's content. Okay, thanks, folks. That'll be brought back. Moving on then to item 5.2, which is to consider the report on the service level agreement with the Education Authority and refurbishment costs for the youth service provision at Bon Acre Centre, Irvinstown. At this point, I'm going to step out of the chair and Councillor Gannon will step in.
All right, folks, I'll just invite Director Boyle in to take us through this document. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, members of the RNC Committee in October 23, approval was granted to enter into a service level agreement with the Education Authority for youth services for facilities at the Bon Acre Centre, and that there would be minor works undertaken to facilitate the service level agreement, which would be fully funded from the Education Authority at an estimated cost of 20,000. The Education Authority planned to have a youth service hub at the Bon Acre Centre operating 5 nights a week. And the costings, the revised costings have come in relation to the minor works required to establish the hub at almost 30,000. Land and Property Services have been asked to value the rental of the enhanced space, of the increased space that the hub will be using at the Bon Acre Centre, and have valued it at 31,500 per annum. Now that's up from 15,000 for the current space that they use in the current nights that they use in the Bon Acre Centre. The Education Authority have agreed to pay that revised valuation by entering into a 5-year service level agreement with the council. But I've asked if the council could fund 50% of the costs of the development in order to bring it to fruition. And I suppose when you take that into account, the increase of 16,500, the 50% of the costs would be 15,000 approximately. So we would be recovering those in year 1 of operation. I suppose for officers, it would be enhanced facilities for the youth in the Irvinstown area. And indeed an enhancement to the building in the Bon Acre Centre itself. So therefore, Chair, it's recommended that the council undertakes the minor works at the Bon Acre Centre at an estimated cost of 29,273, with 50% to be funded from the Education Authority, up to a maximum 14,864. And enters into a 5-year service level agreement with the Bon Acre or with the Education Authority for youth service provision at the Bon Acre Centre at a rate of 31,500 per annum. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. And I'd like to propose the recommendations. I was there actually last year in my role as Vice Chair, and it certainly is in need of some attention, and I think it's it's perfect that we're going to be able to get the Education Authority to use it 5 nights a week. That's what we want from our facilities. So perfect answer. This is a win for the council that their facilities are going to be upgraded, and it's a win for the local community that these facilities are going to be provided for 5 nights a week. So happy to recommend.
Thank you. And Councillor Green?
Yeah, and I'm happy to second that.
A very worthwhile project, in my opinion. Also, I see no other indications. We all agreed? Thank you, folks. If someone could grab Stephen back in there.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gannon, for that. Okay. Moving on now to consider the report of the Director of Community and Wellbeing, which is paper J.
Yes, thank you, Chair. 2 elements to it. One is to seek members' approval to host a chairman's reception for German pupils on an exchange visit to Enniskillen. Members may remember this happens on a biannual basis where Enniskillen Royal Grammar School have had a pupil exchange programme with a school in Belfield in Germany, excuse the pronunciation. It has been going for many years, and historically the chairman does provide a reception for the German pupils, and we also offer some of our facilities whilst they're there. And what we've suggested is that a free entry tour into the Marble Arch Caves plus a free swim voucher would be provided for the students while they're here. The second element of the report is to enter into a memorandum of understanding between the Culky Lakelands UNESCO Global Geopark and Landscapes NI. Landscapes NI is a membership organisation with responsibility for and role in landscape and protecting the site management of landscape for similar organisations. The Geopark have been invited to become a founder member of Landscapes NI and to collaborate, to learn and to share best practice among organisations with that same knowledge and understanding on the management, promotion, preservation and governance of our natural landscapes in the region. So therefore, Chair, it's recommended that the Council approves free entry for a tour of the Marble Arch Caves, free swim and the holding of a chairman's receptions for the pupils and teachers of the German pupil exchange visit, and approves the Culky Lakelands UNESCO Global Geopark entering into a memorandum of understanding with Landscapes NI.
Yeah, I've got a proposal from Councillor Warrington. Got a seconder from Councillor Gannon. We all content then with the recommendations? Fantastic. Good stuff. Okay. Moving on to item 5.4, which is to consider the minutes of the Health and Social Care Services Subcommittee meeting held on the 12th of March 2024. Paper K, I will take this as read. Do you have any comments just arising from that? And if not, can I get a proposer and seconder? Just note that. Councillor Gannon proposing. I got Councillor Rainey seconding. Thank you very much. We all content? Stuff. Moving on to 5.5 then, which is then to consider the minutes of the Health and Social Care Services Subcommittee meeting held on the 14th of May, paper L. Likewise, I'll take that as read. If there's no comments, can we get a proposer and a seconder for that? Don't be shy. Councillor Gannon and Councillor Buchanan. And we're all agreed? Handy enough. Okay. Now we've got reports for information. Start with some Regeneration and Planning Directorate reports. And we're starting with 6.1, which is to note the report on the business case, paper M. Anne?
Yeah, thank you.
Apologies. Councillor Gannon, you're looking to go. Apologies. Okay. Anne?
Okay. Thank you. So in March 2024, the council approved its revised options and appraisal policy. And so this business case has been assessed in the context of the revised policy, and officers from the Capital Programme Management, or the Capital Programme Service, and members of the Capital Programme Management Board have assessed the business case. And the details of the business case have been included in the report for noting purposes. A copy of the business case has been uploaded to the Decision Time portal. So I suppose in terms of context, in July 2023, members resolved that officers should develop a business case for the possible installation of lighting on pathways at Belcoo Cottage Lawn at an estimated cost of €86,940. The costs have since been reviewed and have increased to £224,169, including OB. The preferred option in the business case was to maintain the existing past infrastructure with no lighting provision. And this option was approved by the Capital Programme Management Board because the proposed works are contrary to a number of council policies, including the Climate Change and Sustainable Development Action Plan, the Biodiversity Strategy, the Energy Management Action Plan, and the Estate Strategy. So the lighting up pathways is not a statutory requirement for council, and the installation of the lights may affect the council's application for accreditation as an international dark skies reserve and its accreditation as a UNESCO global geopark. In terms of the actual business case itself, I suppose just to highlight that the council officers from both the legacy FDC and FODC have considered the installation of external lighting on a number of occasions over the past 11 years. And in each instance, reports have concluded that lighting should not be installed given the adverse environmental and biodiversity impacts. The installation of the lighting will require planning permission. And I suppose we've taken advice recently that just as part of this process, that planning permission will be required, and as part of the planning process, planners will consult with external agencies such as NIEA and the Department for Agriculture. And these agencies will consider the application and assess the potential environmental risks from the proposed scheme. And I suppose it's likely that if planning permission was granted, there'll be a number of conditions associated with that there. I suppose the project has not been identified as a priority in a condition survey or any other internal survey. And as the business case has been assessed in taking into account all our approved policies and strategies for climate change and sustainable development. I suppose we have completed a number of surveys, to looking at to try and address the environmental concerns. And in 2021, a bat activity survey was undertaken to assess bat activity in the park. Sorry, I must have what you have, Stephen. Sorry. So the bat survey found that a total of 137 bat passes, including 4 different species, were recorded during the surveys. And these surveys have included the lighting specification for the cottage lawn that may meet biodiversity guidance, and that, I suppose, helps to explain, I suppose, the costs that have been included. The Northern Ireland Environment Agency will ask for a detailed bat lighting plan and an accompanying ecological statement setting out the baseline ecology conditions. So I suppose then we also then completed another ecological impact assessment in 2021, and the EIA confirmed the continued presence of bats in the area and noted that the provision of lighting on cottage lawn may increase the risks of adverse impacts on bats and biodiversity. This survey also detailed the light spill, the lighting specification. So the light spill in the surrounding area should be less than 1 lux, and as a reference, a full moon typically generates approximately 1 lux. The 2021 EIA noted that the paths along the southern part of the cottage lawn closest to the water are the areas most at risk from lighting. These paths account for approximately 1/3 of the path network in the cottage lawn, and the report recommends a preferred option of no lighting in this area. It is noted that 1 lux lighting is equivalent to full moonlight. There's a risk that this may not meet the public's expectations of appropriate lighting in a public space, particularly in the context of the site's position adjacent to Upper Loch McNean and the natural undulations in some parts of the paths around the lawn. A 5 lux light or level is considered the minimum for the perception of individual pedestrians to other pedestrians to give confidence in the use of an area. In March 2023, the RNC committee resolved that the council should make initial inquiry submission to the International Dark Skies to accredit the cottage or to credit Colca as a dark skies area. And then following these investigations in January 2024, resolved to submit an application for accreditation as an International Dark Skies Reserve. Dark Skies accreditation states that there should be no artificial lighting yielding significant glare or any light dome, and that any light domes are dim, restricted in extent and close to the horizon. The certification process is rigorous and normally takes 2 to 4 years. So the certification process also includes the provision for a periphery zone, and it's likely that Belcoo would be located within that zone. Alongside this, then, the Colca Lakelands UNESCO Global Geopark accreditation must be revalidated every 4 years, and the inspection process focuses on the effective and sustainable management of the geopark and includes assessment criteria related to climate change, education and awareness among locals and visitors, reduction of carbon footprint, the promotion and protection of biodiversity, flora and fauna, and the commitment to sustainable tourism. The Council is committed to a net zero estate, and the 2023 report noted that there had been a decrease in the Council's CO2 emissions between 2019 and 2023, but that rate of decrease was unlikely to achieve the 2036 target. The provision of additional lighting across the Council estate will result in increased energy usage, reducing the positive impact of other energy efficiency measures, while the availability of new LED lighting will help to restrict the extent of that energy consumption. External lighting will inevitably result in increased energy usage above zero baseline. I suppose you will note that the costs of the work, and we did ask, we've received more detail. The report was not taken last month because we're waiting for this information. And you will see that the cost now of completing this project will be £224,169, and then there will be annual maintenance costs of around £7,000. But I suppose the decision of the Capital Programme Management Board was to not to approve the business case because it didn't meet our policies and strategies.
Okay. Councillor Gannon.
Thank you, Chair. And it'll probably come as no surprise where I'm going to go with this to the officers and other councillors. Obviously, when we reviewed our procurement policy, we left in scope for councillors to overrule these decisions. And I am actually going to be proposing that we go ahead with option 2 in the business case. And regarding the funding, we allocate it in year through underspend where possible and with council approval, and if not, at the next available opportunity. I think in line with that policy, it would be important that I outline the reasons for this, for why I believe this to be the case and why this follows policy. So first of all, regarding the corporate plan, whether it be the current corporate plan or the draft corporate plan, it meets numerous of the priorities and numerous of the target areas. So just for example, I'll look at the draft corporate plan we looked at tonight, because 2024-28 will be the period in which this project would be delivered if it was to go ahead. Sustainable access to facilities, it ticks that box. We can also look at how, in priority 1, in terms of climate action, how we can use low carbon measures, renewable solutions. And let's not forget, these don't have to be on all the time, all night. And I don't think that has not been factored in to this business case approval. I don't see it mentioned anywhere. I could be wrong on that perhaps, but I don't think I am. As well as that, we have a commitment for our parks and open spaces to be modern, safe and inclusive, and this lights would go to tick that box as well. And we could actually be a leader in showing how we use our open spaces and how we light them in an environmentally sustainable and a biodiversity complementary way. Just looking at the priority 2, this will help with poverty and fuel transport by putting a facility in a rural area that people can use rather than coming into the likes of, say, Enniskillen and driving in or to other places for that. As well as that, obviously ticks boxes for citizen well-being, supporting our communities, enhancing access to our assets. As well as that, in terms of promoting tourism to allow people to enjoy the great outdoors that we have here in CFD as well. And I would believe it to be an appropriate infrastructure development. And as well as that, in terms of we talk about citizen focus, it's very clear from the survey, 82% of respondents to the survey want this. So that is citizen focus. And in terms of sustainable development, this would tick the box because development does mean perhaps more light, perhaps more consumption, but it fits in with the Geopark Charter. And I highly doubt putting in a couple of lights here would have an impact on our Geopark accreditation. We've seen housing estates and things be built that have had no impact on that, especially in our settlements. Regarding the lighting, I think lighting of 5 lux can be achieved. I think as well as that, we need to look at the bat-friendly solutions, which I'm sure I have, including red lighting due to bats' tendency to higher wavelengths of light in the ranges of blue, that the red does not have as much of an impact on them, as well as looking at light spillage and the accredited and the way we do that and how we put down our sides on that to prevent spill and to get the spill less than 1 lux. So I would say this isn't against the biodiversity plan. Dark skies, I'll say again, this dark skies accreditation cannot stop any development in Belcoo in that regard. What if a couple of houses get built? Would that get rid of it? You know, that's what we have to look at and we have to consider. And if they were to reject us on that, then that's what it is. They reject us. And just to quickly state, Chair, there's loads of disadvantage there. I could spend the guts of half hour to an hour going through this, justifying it and saying why I disagree with it. And there's so much more to the basis of that proposal, Chair. Okay. So that's my proposal that we go ahead with this.
Okay. Councillor Green.
Thank you, Chair. And I think I raised this before. I was an advocate for dark skies over in Slieve Bay area, and when I've seen the outworkings of it, I'm really glad that the unintentional consequences of the council ignoring my suggestions is actually that I'm glad that they did, because I wouldn't want anything to do with it if people are going to be not allowed to have any more developments, because this looks as if Belcoo, somebody wants to build another housing development in it, a much needed housing development in it. There's going to be major problems with dark skies and with planning permission and everything like that. So that's I'm quite concerned around that whole thing. But I know John maybe did answer me before on that if there was a housing development, then we would have to go to dark skies and see what is that not the cart before the horse or the horse before the cart or whatever, and that, like, you know, if this which is the most needed housing for local people or dark skies. I'm not sure. I don't know on it, but no, that's all I have to say.
Well, I just asked those questions just to our biodiversity officer this afternoon, and As she said, you know, it's unlike, you know, if there's small amount of housing built, that will not affect our dark skies accreditation. If there was a housing development with 500 houses being built, or an application, that would affect it. But when you're, you know, it's unlikely that's going to be the case in a rural area in our district. So in terms of small amounts of houses, that would not have any impact on our dark skies accreditation. In terms of the, you know, the one lux, it is my understanding, and this is what I've been told today by her, that the one lux lighting is BAT, that's legislation, that they will not allow any more than one lux lighting. Dark skies aren't as concerned about that, but that is what the legislation is in terms of BATs.
Okay. Councillor Green.
Yeah, and I understand this, and it does seem to be a very complex thing, and I know local people over there are seem to want it. I'm not that familiar with the area or apart from driving through Balcoo on the way to Sleg or something. But I'm just wondering, is there any alternative? Is there any way around this that it's not just yes or no? Is there any other possible solution to it that we haven't thought of? Is there any outside the box solution, you know, for other areas? I'm sure this isn't the only place like this that has looked for lighting. I'm not saying in our council area, but in general across the island of Ireland. And how did they resolve it? I'm just wondering, is there some way or some alternative?
Chair, if I might come in, just the members asked about, you know, anywhere else that has resolved this issue, and I think Councillor Gannon possibly in his comments referred to a town in the Netherlands. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce the name of the town, but in 2018 they took an approach where they installed red lighting, and all of the lighting within that district is red lighting. So that's, I mean, that's one place. Now I have to say this model is not predicated on creating like a red light dome within Belcoo. It's predicated on dark skies friendly accreditation, but the lighting. One of the consequences of dark skies accredited lighting is that you double the number of bollards that would be required. It's, I know you've asked for, is there a halfway house? Is there an alternative? Talk about, you know, there's no dimmer switch on this. It's either, you either have lighting or you don't have lighting. The baseline position is that we don't have lighting. So anything to install lighting takes us above the baseline position. So therefore, anything that we do in respect of lighting will have an adverse environmental impact. What we have looked at within option 2, that's in the business case, is how might we mitigate that. So we have taken on board, you know, looked at a lot of guidance that's out there. So the likes of the Institute of Lighting Professionals, that's where the one lux lighting comes from, as has been referred to already. The one lux is what's required in terms of being BAT friendly. However, one lux is moonlight. So from the point of view of users within the park, it's essentially you're creating, it will be a moonlight environment or a full moon environment, sort of 365 days in the year. Also within that ILP guidance that's referenced, it has taken account of timed off usage. So it's guidance within the ILP recommendations that any lighting provision within those BAT areas or BAT designated areas would be timed off after 11 o'clock. So just to reassure members, that has been taken account of in looking at the development of the business case. I suppose what we can't get away from in all of this is that a reference is made to funding from other underspends. This, you know, what you're talking about here is it's a capital project, so it would have to be an underspend from other capital projects. And I'd say now, certainly on the basis of the capital schemes that I'm involved in, I don't anticipate, that level of significant underspend in terms of capital projects. We work to bring all of our capital projects in on budget and as close as we can in that regard. So there wouldn't be funding in year in the capital program at this point in time. Sorry, well, hopefully that's covered the points. I was just taking a note as members were speaking. I think that's.
Bring Councillor Gannon back in here.
It's just on that point of funding, I said, or the next available opportunity, so whenever that would fall. But it's more a question because I appreciate I've had me time. Is that legislation regarding bat lighting, not regarding light spillage within a certain distance of their habitat, rather than the light themselves? Because there's ways to have greater lux whilst also maintaining or minimizing light spillage in line with actually how dark skies recommend you actually do your lighting. That was my reading of it. I don't know, because the two things are very different. Thank you, Chair.
What I was told was that it was one lux lighting, and that was, that would be in terms of legislation, in terms of bats, and there is no doubt that there are lots of bats in this particular area, and that's based on surveys that have been completed. So I think we would have to get some more detail on that, but that's what that's my understanding. Legislation is if there's bats, one lux lighting. How that's provided. I suppose we also have the problem here with flooding and the cottage lawns, so these would have to be bollard lighting. I think in terms of dark skies, they are, they do light down rather than light up. So all of those, there has been a lot of consideration in terms of trying to come up with options, but we are, the bats, I suppose, and the provision of bats takes precedence.
Tim?
Yeah, and I suppose part of this will be in terms of any statutory approval in terms of the planning process, we will need to consult with NIEA as a consultee and be informed by their guidance in this regard.
Done.
So I was just, Chair, to come back on the question about difference between light spill and the actual lux of the lights. The one lux is in terms of being bat friendly. The other cost that we had looked at in the specification was around the dark skies accredited lighting. So again the costs within this do take account of the light spill directed light, but the one lux is absolutely around the requirement for the bat friendly zones. I said the alternative that had been done in the Netherlands was around the red lights. I suppose for and I know it's referenced within the business case. Our climate strategy, and it's come up in a number of different papers already during the course of this evening, whether it's in respect of energy consumption, about the net zero targets and a net zero estate, a net zero council by 2040. Anything that we're doing to enhance that consumption is going to run counter to those ambitions towards net zero. So I think it is just that we just need to be kind of clear on it. That is sort of unequivocal in terms of our climate strategy and the action plan. And I suppose the other just incontrovertible point is that, as I've said already, and we're repeating ourselves, is that we don't have budget in year at the minute, and anything would be subject to, as Kim has said, the statutory approvals. And the previous position and the previous engagement with the NIEA had been that they would have been minded, and I appreciate this 10 years ago, but they would have been minded at that stage before there was even the same awareness to reject any installation of lighting. And as a result, the Legacy Fermanagh Council, District Council had withdrawn their application at that time.
I'm going to let Councillor Gannon in one last time, but before I do, just putting it out there, I'm conscious that a number of councillors have said that they would appreciate some further clarification, and I appreciate we've been through the houses a little bit on this issue, but would there be any merit in potentially this being brought back next month, potentially with some additional information that could potentially be useful. Just putting that out there. Councillor Gannon?
Just for what it's worth, Chair, and I said I mouthed to you that it'd be one sentence, and that's exactly what it would be, is I only have limited time. I could go through, in my belief, pretty confidently every point that's been raised and give options and give ways in which it does meet policy or does not have an significant adverse impact on our policy. Obviously, with the 3 minutes, I can't do that, but I could if I had the time. So I would be confident in going ahead and how it doesn't go against our policy.
Kim?
I suppose there are lots of arguments about the benefits across a range of policies, and I suppose what this will come down to eventually is also the statutory approval and the planning approval process, and you know, that is an absolute requirement for us to take this project forward, and that will give a lot of consideration or significant consideration to the environmental impacts.
Okay, folks, there's been a fair bit of comment on this. We have a proposal from Councillor Gannon that we proceed with option 2, but we don't have a seconder. Unless there's also any alternative proposal forthcoming. It's ultimately up to yourselves as members. Councillor Buchanan?
Well, Chair, Councillor Gannon has obviously done his homework on this project, and even in my time as Chair, it's been raised with us quite a few times. But even on my own looking at the report, there's been a vast jump in the pricing from 86,000 up to 224. Is that correct, Dan? And I suppose it doesn't meet these statutory policies. And if there was any merit in bringing back more information, but as Kim has said, at the end of the day, if this was to move on, it would have to go before planning and all anyway. Now, I'd be minded to propose the recommendations set out in the report tonight and note the business case. Now, I do appreciate the amount of work that Councillor Gannon has put into this, and even in changing the business case, the way that we view it and all over this past number of months. But that would be my proposal.
Okay. Well, we've got. Okay, that'll be a recorded vote. So the first, the only vote that will be taken will be to accept the recommendations as outlined. Can we please set up a vote?
Yeah, David's going to set up.
Okay.
We have the results coming in. I guess only 5.
You can. Yeah. Do I vote? Yeah, I haven't voted. Oh, yes, of course, here. Yeah. Okay. So. Is that finished?
Yeah, so 10 votes.
Okay, folks, the conclusion of that vote was 8 for and 2 against. So the recommendations in the report are passed. Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Moving on then to item 6.2, which is to note the report of the Director of Regeneration and Planning, paper N.
So the report is just for noting, Chair. It covers a number of items in terms of acceptance of letters of offer, letter of comfort around community support programmes, a redundancy support event for BT staff in Enniskillen, an update on capital spend in 23-24, and it should be noted that there is another detailed report as part of the papers to policy and resources tomorrow night, which also covers the capital spend, the submission of an application to the Peace Plus programme, and the update from the May meeting of the Community Planning Strategic Partnership Board. So the recommendations are to note all of those updates.
Okay, do we have a proposal to note? Councillor McElduff, and do we have a seconder for that? See, Councillor Buchanan. We all agreed? Stuff. Okay. Moving on then to Community and Wellbeing Director reports. 7.1 to note report on summer scheme program for children and young people. Paper O. John.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Chair, it is just to note the wide programme of summer schemes, summer camps that have been planned at various locations across the district, both in our community services run schemes and in our arts, leisure and heritage venues, and also in relation to those where the council delivers programmes or where we fund leisure centres to provide summer schemes, and indeed the amounts that are allocated to the community and voluntary groups throughout the district for summer schemes also. So, Chair, the details are included in Appendix 1 and Appendix 2, and it's recommended that the council notes the report on summer scheme provision for children and young people.
Okay, Councillor Dommett.
Thank you, Chair. And I think this is a great thing across the district. I know that these schemes are oversubscribed because they're fantastic. The service that's offered to families in the summer is very, very good. I just note that there was a budget of 25,000 allocated to that, and we've only, in the report, at the end of the report, it's only about 16,000 that has actually been allocated to the summer schemes this year. So I'm wondering, is there an opportunity to, because I know that there are some reserve lists or whatever for some of the oversubscribed summer schemes. Is there any option to maybe run an extra day to meet those needs? I know staffing is a big issue, but is it something that we could try to do even in some areas, just when there is an underspend? Or it appears there's an underspend? I was waiting for that, John.
Yeah, the appearance is wrong. The summer scheme, and you're not provided with the costs there in relation to the community. What you're looking at there is the sponsored summer scheme programme of 16,000. On top of that is Appendix 1, where all of our summer programme across all of our areas are also included, and those aren't included in that. So we are oversubscribed, and we are under real pressure on this budget. Like, and in fact, we add to this budget slightly. So we do on an annual basis in order to try and deliver it. This is one of the most sought after programmes that our community services run.
Well, can I suggest, if there is any leeway at all, I'd like to propose it, if there is any opportunity for any underspend, that we do consider that for the reserve list, subject to budget and subject to staffing. But I would also like to propose that we are looking at the estimates later in the year, that we look at increasing that budget, because it's a very valuable scheme that's families across the whole district benefit from it. And I know there's not an issue with resources, but we talked before about working with community groups, that not necessarily the council provide these schemes, that the local community are given money to run these schemes. I do think that's something we should explore to try and get this programme out to as many as possible, because I know from reading the report there's maybe 10 to 30 in each summer scheme. I mean, I'm only going to compare it to the GA summer camps. You could have 160 or 180 in any local community for a week at something like that. So the demand is there. I know we probably couldn't meet that demand, but if you work with the community groups across the district, there could be an opportunity, instead of the council delivering the programmes, that the community groups do that. So just for consideration of estimates, I'd like to propose that.
Yeah, and certainly that's what Appendix 2 is showing, is those community groups that we sponsor to provide in excess of what we are providing ourselves to internally through our own systems. Certainly that's the estimates process is where the budget is allocated.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Green.
Yeah, and I'm going to get very parochial here. I know in the Brightborough one, there was a very small facility that run it, where it was run other years, and then it was moved to a bigger location. But the numbers that can go, I think, still limited at 24. Now, I think I was told when it opened, it was a bit like a Taylor Swift concert. It opened at 8 o'clock and it was filled at 10 past 8. If I hope I'm quoting that right, or if not a minute past 8. And that shows the demand that there is. And I think for somewhere like Brupera that there is such a demand, 24 places leaves it really, you know, it leaves it really, really hard for parents and that when they go in at 11 minutes past 8 or even, and all the places are booked. So it shows the huge demand. So is there anything can be done on that to increase the capacity on, especially where the venue can accommodate twice as many or 3 times as many? You know, is there anything that can be done? And if it is purely down to funds, I know there'll be always the possibility of trying to, you know, work around that. I don't want to propose that we add to the budget at the minute, but I want to hear the answer from John first.
Chair, in relation to the provision, it's twofold. One is the availability of the people who run the schemes. You can imagine that, and you see the large list, especially in Appendix 1, right across our district. And we have recruited, and I have to say, have had not an awful lot of success in recruiting people to join, to run our summer schemes. So one is in provision of people actually to run them, and 2 is the financial limits. And I can genuinely say that, and like I've said before, this is probably one of the most uptake programs that we have. We have a limited budget. If we wish to increase capacity at one or other centres, then we have to take it out of somewhere else. I think the council a number of years ago decided that on widening out the scale as to the number of places across our district where summer scheme was provided, and the outcome of that is that we spread our resources an awful lot thinly than what we had previously. So we are, and genuinely, we are at our limit as to the number of schemes that we run, the capacity at those schemes. And if we are to change it from what is laid out here in Appendix 1, then we have to take it out of somewhere else because we are at our maximum.
Yeah, and on the specific question that asked in relation to Brupera with only 24 places, how would that compare to other? Is that the standard that there's only 24 in everywhere's run, or is that an outlier? Just on them figures, Joe.
Well, Chair, I suppose I can come back to Councillor Green in relation to the 24 to confirm that is the figure. I know the average, I think, for our summer schemes that we provide is somewhere around the 30 mark per scheme. But I can't say what the figure is for Brupera, whether it's 24 or 30, but the average certainly would be 30 in each of the summer schemes that we can accommodate.
Okay, and just to follow on, we'll say in general for future years, obviously this is a hugely successful project that we're running here. It's one of the success stories of what the council provides, but we're falling short in what we're able to supply under the funding that we're providing. So what exactly, or can a report be brought back before next year's estimates on what we need to actually be able to actually come out and try if we have the staff to do it and the people there, volunteers and everything to do it, what exactly would we need to actually be able to fulfill the demand? Because I think that would be essential, because our young people in the areas and the parents, we get enough bad press in general, you know, and this is something that, as I said, is a success. So I think we really should, as a council, and when the estimates have been done, try and factor this in, that it is such a success, and we really need to try our best to accommodate everyone that's looking, or almost everyone if possible.
Yeah. Chair, it would be very difficult to put your finger on it as to how much financial resources would be required. There certainly is more demand than we can supply at the minute. That's one thing for certain. I suppose the main issue in relation to that is, even if we had the money, could we actually deliver in relation to staff? And just remember that we are at this point in time, you know, delivery of this is through the summer months. We rely on casual employees to come in, because it is a massive staff resource, because you will see that for every single week during the summer months, there are schemes running in various different locations on the same week. In order to staff that, we need to get casual employees. Those casual employees normally are you know, students who are at university or whatever. They take their leave during the summer also, and they go off. So the ability, even if we had the money to deliver a largely increased programme, is very limited. I would say, but we could certainly try. I know we have went to the market this year in looking for casual employees, and we had limited success. And what you see in front of you, yes, we have met. We definitely will use all of our budget, but and that is struggling, and that is, you know, some of our own staff that are in normal community services are actually diverted into doing this work in order to make sure that it happens.
Okay, Councillor McElduff, you're going to be the last person I take in on this item.
Thank you. Inspired by your opening remarks there, to speak. So, questions. Is there any talking across to the Education Authority about their summer scheme provision in youth centres very often? And somebody did say to me, are term time classroom assistants a suitable cohort, you know, to be recruited for the type of work you're on about? John, it's a question, I don't know the answer to it. And then in previous years, there has been very creative attempts to address holiday hunger in some areas, you know, like neighbourhood renewal areas. Could John update us on the situation with regard to, is it the Department of Education that funded holiday payments for families? I know that families are feeling the loss of that, like families with special needs children. I know that has been brought to my attention. And then specifically on the council provision of summer schemes, I've heard it in two areas in the past. I've heard it in Strathroy, and I've heard it in O'Kane, Culmore. I've heard that local children missed out on the bookings. You know, they might live right beside the centre, but they missed out on the bookings. And in one case, they were looking for flexible method of payment, that you could pay it over weeks as opposed to a single payment. Whatever amount of money they were being asked to pay, that it would be paid over a period of time as opposed to a one-off payment.
Yeah,
those are things I've heard. I'd like some answers. Thank you.
Term time classroom assistants. Yes, listen. The public advert went out looking for people to come in and run our summer schemes. More than happy if term time classroom assistants would wish to apply. We would certainly encourage them to do so. There was actually a promotional campaign in order to try and encourage people to apply for these summer schemes. In relation to holiday hunger, yes, Councillor McElduff, you're absolutely correct that during COVID that was introduced was again discontinued. You will see from the report that everyone who comes to a council-run facility will get a snack. as part of the scheme, and that's in recognition of that. That you know, some people that will be an advantage in doing that. We certainly would be, if anyone is having, but you will see the price there of our council run programs, £11 for the week. Now, if people have difficulty paying that, we certainly are more than happy to work with them in how they pay for it and so on and so forth. And yes, we would be in continual contact with the Education Authority, and I haven't included it in this report, on their summer scheme provision about what they do as part of their provision also.
Okay. So those recommendations also taken into account, Councillor Donnelly's proposal. Are we, well, actually, let's just take Councillor Donnelly's proposal. Are we content with that? Great. And the recommendations as a whole, are we content? Can we get a proposal and seconder for that, actually? Councillor Rennie and Councillor Campbell. Okay. Thank you, folks. Okay. Let's see. Moving on then to the Omahum, item 7.2.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Omahum, and we said we would bring a report on the noise source. I'm going to stop calling it the Omahum. We received a complaint, I suppose, just as background, in August of 2023. We received a further 10 complaints and over the course of the initial investigation. Certainly was a complex investigation in that, and we have discussed it before in the chamber. The noise could be reduced from a number of sources, or indeed from a number of sources even within one business. We did employ the expertise of a specialist noise consultancy. And whilst we used a recording of the hum, and there certainly was a noise, and our environmental health officers actually did record it, we forwarded to the consultant, who was able to undertake a detailed examination of it, and there was various interactions with the consultant in order to identify those acoustic tones of the noise, and then compare it to various tones within the Oma area. So in that sense, we were able to hone in effectively on a specific area, and we undertook a targeted screening exercise in a number of industrial businesses, using our equipment on a 24-hour basis, and indeed at night times. The thing about it is that it wasn't audible every night. It was linked to atmospheric conditions and things like that, which made the investigation very, very difficult. But following that screening exercise, a particular premises became the focus of the investigation. Environmental health officers had engagement and discussions with the management of that premises, and again, but nothing absolutely conclusive was concluded from those discussions. But the noise did cease, in a sense, and the environmental health officers did continue to liaise with the complainants and took measurements within their homes again. And again, we can see that at this point in time, the noise has ceased. But environmental health officers will continue to keep the complaint open. We will keep it under review in the next number of months. I think it is probably more an issue with regard to the atmospheric conditions in the autumn time. So it is so, and we'd like to continue to keep that investigation until that time of year. So therefore, Chair, it's recommended that the Council notes the update on the Environmental Health Service investigation into the noise source in Oma.
Thank you, John. And if anybody wants to catch that report again. I suspect it'll probably be on CNN and BBC and RTE by the end of the night. But on a serious note, though, I'll say this. I mean, I proposed the investigation into this back in November, and I don't think I realized just what a can of worms I was actually opening at that point. But I do want to say that although there's been a fair bit of sensationalism surrounding this, John, I mean, the complaints and the concern about this in Omagh has been very real. I received complaints about it. Councillor McElduff received complaints about it. And it is very much part of the duty of this council whenever we get real issues in terms of noise pollution that we report it, that we look at it, and that we get into it. And I really respect the work that your team has been doing in respect of this. Councillor McElduff.
Chair, you were party to bringing international attention to this. It was national, regional, and international. But again, as you have said, a real issue for people, real noise nuisance for very many families. And, levity was never far away, but it was sometimes ill-placed because it was a serious issue. I suppose one of my questions would be, but I presume the answer is no because it's still live. Are there legal proceedings pending, like enforcement action against the alleged source of the noise? It says here in paragraph 2.4, it doesn't name the source or alleged source, but it suggests that it was an industry with the operation of a fan or ventilation type equipment. Now, from day one, locals had their suspicions and named to me and others their belief that it was an industrial source, and were more specific even than that. So then there was a visit carried out and specialist equipment used. Did the alleged source or the possible source, did they take any action after the visit and after the monitoring that caused the noise to stop? Did they take any corrective action, like a non-operation of particular equipment late at night? And I'm hopeful that at least this chapter of the saga of the Omagh hum has come to an end. But more recently, I received a complaint from a homeowner, a resident, approximately 8 miles away in a rural setting. And it would be like in a direct line from my notion here, as the crow flies, in a rural setting. And I advised that person to contact Environmental Health. They were very, very credible about the noise that they were hearing. So it's hard to understand aspects of this. It's like you're nearly back at school in a science class, acoustic, where it's heard and where it's not heard. But I suppose my question is I presume there aren't any legal proceedings pending, and did the alleged source or possible source of the noise after the visit and the monitoring, did they take any corrective action which may have led to the ending of the noise, at least for most people? Thank you, Chair.
Are you happy to propose, Barry?
Absolutely, delighted.
Chair, I suppose, are we taking any legal action in relation to it? The outcome of it is there wouldn't be enough evidence there in order to inconclusively say that a certain business was responsible for it. Did the alleged source take action? It's not something that we are aware of. So I suppose that's an answer to your two questions. We will continue to keep it under review. And like I say, I think more so in the autumn months, in them clear nights and things like that, I think is when it was most pertinent in any case.
Okay, if we have no further comments, then can we just get a seconder for that report? Good man, Councillor Rainey, seconding. Okay. Moving on then to item 7.3, to note report on arts engagement, paper Q.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This is coming out of, I think it was Policy and Resources, that we take a report on arts engagement. We offer grant aid and sponsorship, as members will be aware of. Culture Night, European Open Heritage Day, various sponsorship for various arts facilities. And we work with those groups in order to develop that arts and cultural initiatives in trying to bring sort of innovative and inclusive projects to the fore. Members will be aware of our council venues, the exhibition space, the performances, and the workshops. I suppose one thing, in just looking at this, one thing that surprised myself was that the percentage of bookings for the local communities and for the third sector organisations is 65% of the bookings in our theatres in the Ardoin and the Strual Arts Centre are made by those third sector organisations, with over 25,000 audience members attending these events on an annual basis. Quite extensive for local performances in our arts centre and our theatre. There's also a year-round exhibition of exhibition programs, which are local artists and arts organisations take part in, and workshops and so on. And there again, the council organises outdoor events, performances, street music, all of that sort of thing, and not to forget the civic arts collection that the chairman has initiated here in the town hall in Enniskillen. I've detailed there the informal engagement with the arts community, the biannual meetings to provide a forum for dialogue, collaboration and consultation, and for council officers to engage in real discussions with the sector for collaboration and how we can move the arts forum forward. We do promote on our social media platforms, Facebook and whatever, all our Strual Arts Centre and Ardoin, and the Arts Easing delivers updates on all the events and arts functions that are happening in the district. And then the role of the Arts Council, and indeed our lobbying role in the Arts Council with the Arts Council was seen when the Policy and Resources Committee again approved the submission of the consultation to the response to the draft strategy. And you will see, and it's included in the report there, that the strategy then took account of that to ensure that all the arts sectors in Northern Ireland is inclusive and reflects society, and highlighted ring fencing investment with underrepresented groups, for example, minority ethnic group, mentoring schemes, and supporting rural artists, which was one of the points which we had communicated through to the Arts Council. So therefore, Chair, in conclusion, it's recommended that the Council notes the update on engagement with the local arts community.
Okay. And Councillor Campbell.
Chairman, I've got a clarity. Thank you, Chairman. I suppose I want to propose that we note the report, and I thank our Director, John, for the update. And, as a former chair of the Arts and Cultural Subcommittee on the Old Legacy Omagh District Council, I really valued that engagement with representatives of the arts community. And I think that's the most important part of that report there is the commitment to keep engaging with that community. I know that committee might have met probably every 2 to 3 months back in the old Omagh District Council, and then see we've got biannual meetings. I think that engagement's important, and I think that the arts community is very rich across our district, and we've celebrated the musicians and the poets and the artists and the actors and all forms of artists in the council. And it is important to keep engaging. And, they were hit particularly hard, I felt, throughout COVID as well. Our artists in the district and our performers, so anything that we can do to support them, we should be doing. And I think that engagement's crucial, really, because they really are a huge resource. And when we look at the health and well-being of people across the district, the arts is there for people that maybe... people that are isolated rurally, in rural areas, and we know that many people's engagement with the arts and with artists is through places like Strual Arts Centre. People that may not be in their local bars and venues, but they will throughout the year go to see an artist at those venues. So just to support our officers in that continued engagement. Thank you, Chairman.
And you're happy to propose?
Happy to propose, yeah, thanks, Chair.
Councillor McElduff?
Agree with everything Councillor Campbell has said, but I would go a little bit further in one particular aspect. Maybe it's because I, like Glenn, have a memory of the way it functioned in the Legacy Oma Council, that engagement. It would be my view that biannual engagement should be opened up to interested councillors in some way, because we feel the lack of communication. There was, even within this council area, the Fermanagh Oma council area, there was a regular engagement with the arts sector, and I think we feel the loss of that, and a gap emerging between ourselves as public representatives and the arts sector. They're not, we don't hear their concerns as such directly the way we used to, both in this council and in the legacy councils. So without taking it over, we would want some input, some democratic aspect to if there's 2 round tables annually, then as well as officers taking the lead on that, I think there should be scope for interested councillors to attend so that we hear the voice of the arts sector. So, that would be my suggestion. I haven't called it a proposal just yet.
Is there some means of incorporating that, John?
Yeah, Chair, yeah, we can incorporate it. I'm not keen to create another forum for councillor nominations too, but I think we can facilitate councillor attendance at such engagements.
Genuinely believe a gap has opened up between the arts practitioners and ourselves, and we're not hearing for about the past 2 years, just about 2 years, this gap has emerged. There wasn't a gap beforehand because there was an all-party representation at an arts forum for this council area, this current council. Isn't that right, John? Mm-hmm. And prior to that in the Legacy Council. So to me, it's a deficit. It's a deficit. But I have to say that paper is very good. It's a very good source material for us. And it's not overstating the council's role. It's maybe, stating it as it is. It's predominantly Arts Council. But I do notice that gap opening up in the last 2 years. That's it, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. And I suppose my role over the last 12 months, I've had an opportunity to engage a lot with the people from the different arts areas and, in the district. And quite a lot of the time, a lot of the artists would have said that they have difficulty sourcing places to meet, to do their art. It could be something that as a council we could look at, even working with the colleges, looking at our own buildings to see, are there spaces that could be opened up to give opportunities for local artists to meet and maybe work together on something, even if it is a collaboration of something for the council. And then the other thing I would suggest is that quite often in the chair and vice chair roles too, small gifts would be given to different groups. It's an opportunity there as well for maybe giving something small and local from a local artist to give them an opportunity too to promote what they do. I think we could work closely with our local artists to give them I suppose, a place where they can be represented, but also we give a small gift, so why not vary it? Right? Why not look at opportunities to promote small local businesses? So maybe just to consider that when we're doing things like that.
Be accommodated then? Yeah, okay. Right, okay, so that was proposed by Councillor Campbell and seconded by Councillor McElduff, and I think those various ideas have kind of been taken on board. Okay, are we all content? Enough. Okay. Moving on then to 7.4, to note the report on events and festivals, paper R. Just a note. Can I get a proposer and seconder then, just to note that report? Councillor Green. Councillor Buchanan. Fabulous. Okay. Then moving on to 7.5, to note report on Kulka Lakeland's new UNESCO Global Geopark, paper S. Is that just a note? Mm-hmm. Okay. Can we get a proposer then just a note? Councillor Buchanan, and can we please get a seconder? Please get a seconder. Councillor Rainey. We're all agreed? All agreed. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on then to items of correspondence. We've got 8.1, which is to note the correspondence dated 16th of May 2024 from the Department of Health regarding lack of NHS dentists, and copy has been attached. Happy to propose and happy to second. So that's Councillor Donnelly proposing and Councillor Buchanan seconding. Okay, moving on then to 8.2, which is to note correspondence dated 17th of May 2024 from Remembering Srebrenica regarding Srebrenica Memorial Week 2024.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a short word on it. The Memorial Week runs from the 12th of July to the 19th of July. Memorial Day is the 11th of July. I am aware that in 2021, I think it was September, the Chair, Councillor Thompson, hosted a talk from one of the survivors of Srebrenica, the massacre, and part of that, the international lessons response was part of a good relations programme. It's on our YouTube. It's actually a really, really powerful talk from one of the surviving members. Lasts near up to an hour, where he talks about his experiences and the learnings, I suppose, for something like that atrocity never to happen again. So maybe, and I know it's asked here to invite Fermanagh Nova District Council to join local authorities across the country in commemorating Srebrenica. Maybe is to bring that recording to the forefront during that week again of our social media. Because I think it is very powerful. Just a suggestion, Chair.
Okay. Do we have any proposals then just arising out of that? Okay. Councillor Rady, you're happy to propose that the officers will take that away to make sure that we mark this in an appropriate way? Yeah. And do we have a seconder? Oh.
Happy to second, Chair. Would this be an appropriate time to mention that wee bit of AOB quickly?
Yeah.
About lighting council building. So it'd be just to propose that on the 18th of October, we mark Developmental Language Awareness Day by lighting our council buildings. I'm going to suggest purple. That is the colour of the day, but if council officers find a more appropriate colour whilst looking at the undertaking, like, go for that as well. But I think purple's the one to go for.
Okay. Right. So, yeah, that's been proposed by Councillor Rennie, seconded by Councillor Gannon. Do we have a seconder for Councillor Gannon's proposal? And Councillor Campbell. So those are both seconded. Yeah, are we agreed? Yeah. Okay. Grand. Okay. 3 other. Is there any other? Yeah. We do AOB first now. Yeah, well, I'm conscious, folks, just given this is the first time, I haven't set out the rules just in terms of AOB and all the rest of it. I mean, from now on, I'll be saying if you want an item of AOB submitted, contact me before 5 o'clock on the day. But just given, it's the first time, if there's any items of AOB that you want to raise, maybe just raise it now. Okay, Councillor Donnelly. Here we go.
Thank you, Chair, and I'd emailed you earlier in the week there, so.
Oh, apologies, that's my bad.
Too busy. I know then, a lot on. No, I would like to propose that we ask the Chair to write a letter of congratulations to Aaron Travers, who represented Ireland recently at the World High Rocks Championships. He came 15th in the world. So it'd be nice if the Chair could write on behalf of the Council to congratulate him on his achievement. Thank you.
Fantastic. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor McElduff, and are we all agreed? Fantastic. All right, good stuff. Do you think we'll need to extend the time? 10 minutes? No? Okay. That's a challenge. Councillor McElduff?
I was at a meeting of FLT today, and I learned in the course of it that James and Dimpna, James McCrory and Dimpna, they won major awards recently. Glampin Awards for Gortian Glens Glampin. At least 3 major regional awards recently in 3 different categories. And I was just thinking during the meeting of FLT today, I think we should as a council congratulate them on what they're doing for tourism promotion in the Sperrins. You know, with these 2 brands, of course, within this council area, Fermanagh Lakelands and Oma and the Sperrins. And, you know, we're keen to develop both. One's at a different stage of maturity than the other, of course. But I just thought there's a case where we could be positive and congratulate them. So a letter from the council congratulating James and Dimpna on their achievement. I'd say Kim would know more about the nature of the awards than me, but it's a regional Glampin Awards within tourism. Thank you.
Okay, and that's seconded by Councillor Donnelly. We all agreed? Fantastic. Okay, we need a proposer to go into confidential business. Councillor Buchanan, seconded by Councillor Gannon. Okay, confidential business. That was Councillor Rennie. Yeah.
Seconded?
Yeah.
Councillor Donnelly?
It was Councillor Donnelly.
You
Yeah.
accept?
Yeah. Okay. John. John Summer.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, during confidential business, members received an update report on the redevelopment of the Fermanagh Lakeland Forum and approved the recommendations there. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Well, managed to make it bang on 10 o'clock there, folks. Yeah. So can we get a proposer and a seconder? We got Councillor Donnelly and we have Councillor Buchanan. I'll just say, folks, I mean, we did propose to defer a lot of stuff to next meeting, which is going to be the night before the election. So, you know, perhaps indicate fairly early if you can, sort of whether you're going to be in attendance or not, just so that we kind of know where we stand with things. Yeah. And not as much. And before we stop, actually, I do want to take this opportunity actually just to acknowledge that this is Kim's last meeting here of RNC. And I know that all of us have worked closely with her over like an extended period of time, and your commitment to public service and to working with us to achieve positive things for our district has been significant. And we wish you the very best in the future. And we're certainly going to miss you, Kim. I don't think it requires any amendments. Okay. Okay. Thank you, folks.